1. For 18 months, I had been working from home, as most of us had. From a work perspective, this has been great. I've been more productive than when I'm at the office. Been able to work more flexible hours and have saved a ton of money by not commuting. My workplace had an agreement that those working from home can do what hours they want, so long as we are able to answer urgent calls in core hours, and we get all our work done. Fair enough, as far as I'm concerned. For 16 months, this worked great. As above. Then, over a few weekends, I had a clear out of the house and took pictures of all the items that are in good condition, but we no longer want, with a view to giving it away to whoever wants it. One day, when I'm working from home, I take my lunch break, make a quick sandwich, and post the items that I'm giving away on one of those local Facebook free pages. I didn't know it at the time, but one of the managers, called Shambles henceforth, from my work was also signed up to that page, and he saw my post. He then took it upon himself to go to the owner of the company and tell him that I was slacking off and posting on Facebook during work hours. For context, this wasn't my boss, who was super chill so long as everything was done on time. Nor was a complaint to my boss, but to the owner of the company. We're a big business, so there's a lot of people in the chain of command between me and the owner. And to top it off, I had been doing a lot of work for Shambles. He'd outsourced the running of entire projects to me over the last 18 months, all of which I had executed and he'd taken ample credit for. And this was the only time in 18 months I'd posted anything on Facebook because I never post. So the owner contacted me. And to be fair, he's a decent guy. The conversation went like this. I've been told you're posting on Facebook during work hours. Just be smart about it. It doesn't look good when colleagues see it. Completely understand. Just so you know, I posted that during my lunch break. I was told you were posting at noon. The company lunch break is usually 1 to 2. I did, but that's because when I'm home working, I always take my lunch 12 to 1. Okay, I don't have an issue with that. Just keep your head down. Like I said, a decent guy. I wasn't really in trouble and the owner didn't seem to care, but then I started to think, wait, who the hell has gone to the owner with this in the first place? Long story short, a co-worker who was working on site that day heard on the grapevine that Shambles had been bitching to the owner about me and how I'm always on social media when I should be working. I literally only have Facebook, and I only use that for Messenger 99% of the time. Cue PettyRevenge. As I said before, Shambles likes to outsource work to me. I never minded this, the work was varied and it broke the week up. Plus my own boss didn't mind, as I always had my work done for him on time. However, I never got recognition for the extra work. For 2 years I managed a sub-department completely on my own because he didn't have time to do it. I didn't get a penny more for it, but it was a good group of people and I enjoyed getting experience of management. Well, after this, every time Shambles came to me with an issue, I would say I was super swamped, but that I'd try to deal with it if I had time. The projects he tried to outsource to me, I immediately rejected, saying that I had a full plate of my actual job. And that sub-department I ran? We'll get to that. Over the next couple of months, Shambles starts missing deadlines. Issues come up with existing projects that he hasn't fixed. And employees are complaining that every time they go to him with an issue, it doesn't get resolved. It dawns on me that at this point I've basically been doing this guy's job for him for years. Fuck that. I set up a meeting with my boss and put forward my arguments for why I should be promoted. Or really, why I should have been ages ago. I point to all the projects I've successfully run as well as the sub-department I've managed for 2 years. He completely agrees and says he'll take it to his boss. Now somehow, I don't know how, but when I go to the next meeting with my boss's boss, Shambles is there too. He's on the same level in the company as my boss's boss. A little phased, but not willing to give up, I put my arguments forward to them. Shambles lets me finish, then proceeds to tell me that I don't know enough about our work to manage. I don't have the required people skills, and then he tells me, and this is verbatim,
Besides, people here don't respect you. They respect me. I know I'm a good manager. If you really think about it, you know you wouldn't be.
I forget what else was said after that, but I was completely destroyed. Boss's boss comes up to me afterwards and tells me that Shambles is a dick, but unfortunately he's got the approval of the higher-ups, so what he says has too much sway for him to go against him. I tell Boss's boss that if that's the way it is, I'm going to look for other employment. He sighs and says, "I don't blame you." Cue PettyRevenge. During the time it took me to look for and apply to other jobs, I have time to think about how I can get back at Shambles. He's used me for years and is now blocking my promotion. I'd already stopped working on his stuff and his projects were going from bad to worse, but I needed something more. Now this next part could be an entire post on its own, so I've bulleted it for brevity. 1. I'm an accredited internal auditor for quality systems. 2. I ask if I can be assigned a couple of last audits before I have to help them out. 3. I carry out these audits and, using my intimate knowledge of Shambles projects, find every single issue I can. 4. A number of people also hate Shambles and give me more dirt on him. 5. Someone gives me breakthrough information that Shambles has been forging signatures and bypassing multiple company procedures to make his KPIs look better. 6. I write up the report with tons of evidence attached and send it off. 7. The report gets flagged at the highest level because of what it shows. 8. Shambles gets dragged over the coals. I wish I could say this story ends with Shambles getting fired and having to sell his body on the street for scraps, but obviously, using all the connections he has, he keeps his job. I later found out, though, that he was due a massive promotion, as in catapulted to the top of the company, running whole divisions kind of thing. That never happened, though. With his declining numbers as well as a damaging audit showing all his shortcomings, he's basically told he'll never progress beyond where he is, and that he's lucky to have a job at all. He still works there, and I'm told his ego has been taken down a whole washing line worth of pegs. As for me, I'd love to say I got a better job with a massive raise. That's half true. I decided to pursue my dream job, literally since I've been a kid dream job, in a totally different industry. All the experience I had counted in my favor, and although I took a bit of a pay cut, I've never enjoyed work more. Oh, and that sub-department I was running? They knew that when I left, Shambles would take over running them again. So in my last month at the company, I gave them all tutorials on how to search for jobs and pass interviews. I had worked in recruitment previously. I've heard from a number of them since that they'd landed better jobs and thanked me in part for it. Not the perfect ending, but I'm damn happy with it. 2. I am the AV supervisor for a large company that hosts events. Specifically, I look after quotes for the technical side of corporate events, giving clients access to projectors, microphones, speakers, etc., for their large corporate presentations, meetings, and whatnot. I also manage and brief the floor crew who actively run the events. We use a program to book our equipment which, while powerful, is a bit laggy on the average computer, and is also extremely expensive per year, about $2,000 per user per year, and there's about 30 of us in the company that use it. Relative to how much our company makes per year, it's a pretty hefty cost. It's a good program when leveraged properly, but sometimes it can drive you mad with its weird way of doing things. One important feature of the program is that it tracks the booking of all equipment everywhere, including time for packing it into a room and packing it out of the room. This is useful because it prevents our team from overbooking equipment. If it's not available, the system won't let you book it. There's no way around that. If I'm short on equipment, I can book extra equipment from another rental company and uncharge that to the client, when I know in advance that I need to do that. Anyway, cue big presentation from the booking company showing their latest version of the booking software. It's great, it's faster, it's better than ever. We have a busy week come up, and I'm flat out floored with the paperwork, pulling a 60-hour week. Our company is fantastic with overtime. We don't get overtime pay, but we do get time in lieu. Our bosses are totally cool about it. So if I work 1 hour overtime, I get 1 hour off the following week. Do a 60-hour week and you get 20 hours off later. Anyway, one of my floor crew comes up to me. "Hey LP, the equipment isn't available. We've already got it out on another event." "What? It should be available." "Nope, it's definitely not. I just set it up for another event 2 hours ago, and that event is running for 3 days. Cue me running back to my desk and rechecking all my paperwork. FYI, equipment list going out for events is often over 100 lines long. Hence why we don't do manual checks over bookings. The system should do it. As it turns out, all our equipment was overbooked multiple times, in many cases overbooked on 3 events or more. I make multiple phone calls to rental companies and bring in rental equipment on short notice. That's expensive, and I can't charge it to the client on such short notice. If you took our expected profits for that week, you could add a negative symbol to the front, and that'd be our new profit. I log a job with the company that makes our booking software and then proceed to double-check all our upcoming events. Oh boy, a lot of overbooked equipment. Note, these events are often independently created by multiple people at different times of the year. There's no way they'd themselves check if the equipment was available, it's just not feasible. Hence why we rely on the system that, up until now, worked. The booking software company is extremely dismissive, saying that it's a rare glitch and that they'd look into it. Cue 1 month later, and still no fix. I'm now spending significantly more time double-checking all our events for overbooking. The booking software company still doesn't care about a smallish company like us. Frustrated, I ask my boss for a copy of our service agreement with the company. He's annoyed with the situation as I am, so we go through it together. Turns out there's a clause in there saying that the booking company would provide compensation in the event of total system failure, in the event that the system can't even be accessed. Well, we definitely call this a system failure, of sorts. Its failure is costing us a lot of money, so we send the bills of all our rentals that cover overbookings to the booking software company. That gets their attention quickly, when the total bill amounts to more than triple how much they make off us each year. The booking software company says,
"Hey, OP, what's with these bills?"
Here's a job reference you still haven't responded to after 2 months now, and here's a link between each rental and each event that's overbooked.
There's no way the system is letting you overbook equipment, and you can't send those bills to every event that's overbooked.
I share the screen. Alright, let's test it. The booking software company shares their screen as well, logging into our version of the booking system. They proceed to book some equipment that should 100% not be available. True to their word, the system doesn't let them do it. I then book the same equipment on the exact same event, but for my computer, my boss's witness. The system lets me do it without any alarm. This surprises them, and they start talking about potential fixes. They also say they're willing to pay for the rentals up until now. 2 months later, we're still billing them for every rented equipment, they're still paying without questioning, and we still don't have a fix. I've changed the procedures to check for overbooked equipment though, so we aren't running around like madmen trying to fix things last minute anymore. 3. I was the assistant manager in a discount retailer. Every few days, someone in corporate would come up with an idea, designed to look good on paper in an office somewhere, I'm sure. Maybe a beautiful PowerPoint display or an Excel sheet loaded with formulas. All fantastic in theory, but painful to implement in real life. On this day, an email came. Basically that from here forward, anything purchased by staff that was going to be in the staff area would have to have a manager-signed till receipt attached. There would be 2 days grace, and then anything found on the next area manager call would be noted and binned immediately. So regardless if this was a sandwich or a drink for lunch, jar of coffee or a full shop, it would be binned. Cameras everywhere except the toilet cubicles wasn't enough. Let's let these guys on a pittance know we trust them less than Chris Chan in an old folks' home. I didn't know what Chris Chan was this morning. I wish I didn't know now. The company, unable to hold managers, were on a huge recruitment drive. Rather than promote from within, they decided to promote from outside to fill the positions faster. So my store gets a new store manager with limited previous experience and out to make his name in the company. Immediately he hits the canteen, bins everything with no receipt. Everything, food and non-food. He doesn't give a crap. The staff are pissed. Word travels fast. Now I've paid my dues between the on-trade and retail. I started at the bottom, sorting bottles for recycling as a kid, and I know enough to know that I and my colleagues are only numbers in the corporate machine. Disposable, replaceable. a necessary inconvenience that is to be treated as such, and never to be treated as equal to the customer, even when they are the customer. Corporate never considered for a moment just how much the staff spent. 45 to 50 people throughout the week supplementing the sales. Understand that when someone is on a timed break, remembering the receipt is not a priority, and then trying to find a manager to sign it. I know I'd often be in the cash office counting tills, and company policy doesn't let you leave that room in the middle of a count with the safe open. So by the time a signature was obtained, a fair chunk of your 15 to 30-minute break was gone, and at your own expense. And this applied to me as well. I was expected to get whoever was on with me to sign my receipts. I had a very quick meeting with everyone I'd see over the next few days explaining this new piece of stupidity, and why their coffee, sugar, etc. had vanished, and that it was entirely the new guy. I pointed out very clearly that anything purchased in the major retailer directly opposite was outside of the scope of our employer and could not be touched, and needed no receipts or proof of any kind. And if it was touched, I would report it directly to the highest available person I could get, bypassing the area management. It took 3 weeks before the call came. In that time, we stuck to the rules to the letter. The store was down on its week-on-week figure against last year for the last couple of weeks by a few hundred. Guess why? Area manager arrives to investigate how the new store manager is letting the figures slip, pulls me aside and says what the funk is happening with this drop-off. I explained what happened, how all the staff and foodstuff was tossed out with no concern, and how, with this situation, the only option is to shop elsewhere. He looks shocked, like, how could these idiots do this? He goes off on his phone, comes back, calls me and the new guy into the office, says unofficially revert to normal. This is the only blip in my area, get these figures right for next week. It was too late to fix the next week, but within 2 weeks we were okay, and new guy was seen as the savior, and got a move to a brand new store, and lasted a month before his team turned on him. 4. I work at a well-known huge grocery store in the bakery in Delhi. I've been in the general area now for 3 years, been in management and recently stepped down this year to focus on college. In early June, I had turned in my letter of resignation, letting them know that August 13th would be my last day. It's now about mid-July, and we've got an audit going on. Basically, everything has to be perfect. They ask you questions about your job, everything has to be on code, etc. Up until this point, we've been having an issue with staffing because instead of hiring employees full-time, they hire everyone part-time. I am the only full-time employee in my department. Because of this, there's never enough people to work, and they'll schedule 4 people working 3 or 4 hour shifts one night, and then the next, one person will be closing alone the entire night. Usually me. I'm fine with that. I enjoy working alone, but this night was extra stressful with all the extra work I had to do because of the audit. I was all alone the night in question, and working a shorter shift than usual. We tend to close up the deli around 8 p.m. and have 2 hours to clean up. I was scheduled till 8:30 p.m. and spoke to my managers about it and got permission to close at 5 so I could take a lunch break and have 2 hours to close up. My managers also said that I would be sent home around 7:30 p.m. to help me close on time. Around 7 p.m. a woman comes up to the meat slicers asking for some sliced meat. I tell her I'm sorry, but we're closed for the night. She bitches me out for a moment, complains that she comes here every other night and we are always open, and I explain to her that we are low on staffing and I've already cleaned the slicers for the night, and she leaves. About 5 to 10 minutes later, my assistant manager walks up and asks me what the problem was. She had gone to management and demanded we slice her the meat. I explained the situation and his response was to berate me for closing the deli down early and tell me to help her and just clean it again. "Just stop being difficult," is what he said. After slicing her some meat, we ended up being out of a different kind and she walked out of the store, leaving everything behind, and meaning I had created more cleaning for nothing. I was pissed. I took a walk to cool down and went to find my buddy who was supposed to come over at 7:30 p.m. and ask when he was coming over. When I found him, he told me he wouldn't be able to come over because the assistant manager had come over and given him a long list of stuff to do for the rest of the night. That pissed me off even more. I found the assistant manager and was like, dude, what the fuck? And reiterated that I was leaving at 8:30 p.m. and needed assistance, and he told me once again, stop being difficult and just get it all done. I told him there was no way I was getting it done in time and said that my schedule says I leave at 8:30, so I'm leaving at 8:30, regardless of how much is left to do. I guess he hadn't gotten the memo that I was quitting soon, so in response, he tells me that if I can't do my job well enough, that maybe I should start looking for another job. That was my breaking point. After 3 years of working with shitty management and their backward ways, I decided I didn't need to do it anymore. I told him, okay. Found some of my favorite co-workers and told them goodbye, and it was nice working with them and walked out. Haven't gone back since. They failed their audit. 6 other employees in my general area quit shortly after, due to most of them traveling out for college. The rest are planning on leaving as well. As far as I know, the entire area is fucked up. Hope the manager got his ass chewed out, but I doubt it. I've reported some of the managers there for serious issues, telling me they were too busy to help women whose lives were being threatened in store, retaliation, threatening to fire people if they didn't work overtime, causing someone to lose Medicare and ration their insulin and be hospitalized for a few weeks. And they never went anywhere. Fuck that place. 5. I used to be an intern at a bank while I was pursuing my diploma, and on paper, the working hours were supposedly your typical 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., but people usually either came late and stayed late, or came early and stayed late. There was a colleague of mine, Denise, who had to come all the way from Malaysia every morning just to get to work in Singapore. There was an unofficial agreement with her boss that she was allowed to enter the office at any time, since she was never sure what time she could reach her workplace depending on traffic. This was fine since she usually reached at 12 p.m. and stayed until at least 8 p.m. just like everyone else, and staying past 11 p.m. was the norm here. Just like most people, her day can't start without a cup of coffee, and she would get one no matter what time she reached. No one had any issues with her coming in late at all, until another intern came. Let's call her Jane. Now, Jane was the kind of person who hated coming to work early and loved to go home the moment the hand on the clock hit 6. Honestly, so do we, but we don't do it. She loved to gossip with other colleagues and friends, and while she could never arrive at work on time, she would always take what must have been considerable time to apply her makeup, as it was applied somewhat liberally. Other colleagues had already submitted multiple complaints regarding her coming to work late, and her manager was already pissed and sent Jane an email. She was not to come to work late anymore, or her internship would be considered null and void, along with a mention to her supervisor that she would fail that semester, as her internship was graded. All of us were in a team meeting when she received that email, which led to her outburst.
Manager, why can Denise come to work late but I can't? Just because she's a full-time employee doesn't mean she doesn't have to follow the rules.
Alright, in that case, you get to follow her work schedule then.
Okay, sure.
At this point, all of us were amused but horrified by what that entailed, because as interns, we had to send a morning report to our school from our work email at 11 a.m. sharp in the morning with no exceptions. Imagine her surprise when she remembered this the next day and even took a taxi down to rush her report and tried to leave work at 6 p.m. but was reminded by the manager she could only leave at 11 p.m. It didn't take too long for her to realize that when the manager said to follow her, Denise's, work schedule, she meant the staying late part as well. This meant that Jane had to report to work from 10:45 a.m. and could only leave when Denise does at 11 p.m. Hell, I'll never forget her face when she panicked and tried to call up her manager, but was denied resuming her previous working hours as per the verbal agreement which everyone heard the day before. This continued for roughly a week, with Jane looking wearier and wearier as time went by, from coming in an hour later, but only being allowed to leave work 5 hours later. Thankfully, she apologized by then, and our manager was nice enough to let her resume with actual working hours. Throughout the rest of my time there as an intern, she was always punctual and even worked late sometimes. I left before Jane did, and she did eventually become a better person, didn't gossip as much anymore, and was a lot more well-mannered. We added each other on Instagram and still keep in touch. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Revenge is Ice Cream, episode 91. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you enjoyed the video, then please do like, subscribe, and comment, if you haven't done one of those already. Okay, where are we? This goes up on Wednesday, the 11th. I do have a birthday shout out to do that I only noticed a few days late, so I'll do it today, and hopefully it's not too late, although I'm sure it would have been better on Saturday. Okay, today's birthday shout-out goes to Annabeth Barr. I don't know how old Annabeth is, but I hope you had an absolutely lovely and wonderful birthday. Let's see, that would have been Saturday. Well, it was a weekend, so hopefully you got to do lots of happy toe wiggling and, well, lots of cake and drinks of whatever nature you prefer, be they alcoholic or not. I'm not going to judge. And, before I go, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Annabeth. Happy birthday to you. Alright, I think we'll wrap things up there. I'm feeling a bit iffy today. I do hope I'm not coming down with anything, but well, we'll see. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off from now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.